get clear on what the problem is, understand who your buyer is, and prove it. So before you overbuild, you need to validate the urgency of what you're solving. Your cheapest validation and your cheapest capital is sales. If you get people interested and they're prepared to buy, then you go gangbusters. Not just one person, not just two people. I built a $30 million pipeline on this product. That was more than one or two people. Now their job is to go down and knock them down. That's validation, right? As they get through due diligence. So, and with that, you can take that and go and help raise yourself some money. It's always best to have sales. Show that someone in the market cares. Or what's going to happen is you're going to pivot.
Welcome to the NextGen Scale Podcast. I'm your host, Elena, AI consultant and architect of change. In every episode, I sit down with the founders, innovators, and leaders who are building the future, the ones who are solving the hardest problems and turning disruption into opportunity. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, this podcast is for you. Let's get into it. Today's guest helped scale a $52 billion business at JP Morgan, then left institutional finance to become a startup builder. Today he runs Silicon Beach, a hybrid accelerator and venture studio that partners with AI and tech founders to turn traction into scalable companies. Please welcome Jason Engelhardt. You spent over 20 years on Wall Street, including senior roles at JP Morgan, before stepping into the startup world as a founder. What led you to make that move?
Well, it's interesting. So I spent more than 20 years on Wall Street, and that's where I really learned how businesses scale. And I understood product, risk, performance, distribution, and I really wanted to move a little closer. So after Wall Street, I helped raise money for an NBA franchise acquisition. And then after that, a buddy of mine asked me to become the president and COO of his fintech company. So I did that, and I absolutely loved it. But I was commuting back and forth from Jacksonville, Florida to New York. And if you don't know, it's about a 2-hour some odd commute by plane. And it's not something you do every day, but I was doing it every week. And I really wanted to find a way to build something here in Jacksonville and in the Southeast. And I decided I really wasn't going to be able to find a role. So what I wanted to do is build an ecosystem that would allow me to work with people and bring my institutional discipline to the startup world and to that speed. And that's been what's been so exciting, is that the discipline of building things on Wall Street is still the same discipline you need to grow startups. But there are a lot of people that are lacking that muscle. And I understand why, right? I was effectively, in a finishing school for 20, 25 years, and they drilled it into you. And we grew some amazing products into big events. So that was wonderful. But the question is, how do I do that on a smaller scale and help people effectively punch above their weight? And that's really exciting to me.
So how a person who have worked in big companies does the switch to starting a startup and a project on their own?
I got to tell you, that is a great question. It's not easy. I remember when I switched and I went to that first fintech, and then I went on to work with an AI company, and then I started this. But they would say, we can't get over how well you've switched, because there are a lot of people that can't. And I got to tell you, it is very hard to realize that I don't have 300 people behind me anymore. It's also hard when you had a name like a JP Morgan or a Bank of New York behind you, and people always picked up the phone. Now it's just me, and I've spent the last few years building the Silicon Beach brand. So it's not a JP Morgan brand. It's not a Bank of New York brand. It's not an American Express brand, but it's a little brand, and it's not easy. And the harder thing is relying on other people when, I don't have the budgets that they have either. Um, but it's really rewarding. So I've had to learn to do different things, and I had to become a different person as well. You're a lot harder on Wall Street than you are when you leave Wall Street because you have to be. And that is an ongoing lesson. My wife likes me a lot more now. I can tell you that.
Can you tell us a bit more about what is Silicon Beach doing and also about your business model? It's positioned as a hybrid accelerator and a venture studio. So, what was the gap that you see in the market and that you're trying to solve with this business model?
Another good question. So when I started to do this, I was going the venture studio route, and I found that there are a lot of people that go to incubators or accelerators, and um, there's a gap there, right? The commercialization gap, and a lot of people call it the death valley or something, right? And there's a gap between advice and execution. What a lot of incubators and accelerators do is they give people advice, give them a little bit of money, and then they give them advice. And then they say, great, you've graduated and go with God and tell us how you did, right? And we own a little bit of your company. Um, I find that to be a very difficult thing for many founders. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's just a handful of people, but that's okay. Because they walk out of there going, yeah, I had this great rah-rah session for 6 or 8 weeks, but I need more, right? They get out and it's kind of like after you graduate college, you go, crap, now what? Right? So I wanted to be the answer to the, oh crap, now what question, which is, one, if you go through an accelerator or an incubator, it's wonderful because you're probably coming out with a decent understanding and a good message and a good potentially presentation deck. But what I find is, and what we try to do is we work on commercialization. We work on sales. When people leave me, they have built a business, they have sales, they have a pipeline, they have messaging. And that happens because what we do is we join the company. I become a co-founder, or not even a co-founder, but I become a co-builder in this. And the reason being, we have to really work with them to understand what the goal is, what the problem is that they're solving. That's the biggest issue. A lot of people have a great idea, but they don't always understand the problem. So if you don't understand the problem that you're trying to solve, it's hard to sell it and find out if someone actually cares about it, right? Incubators take every idea and say, oh, this is great. Let's run you through this. I don't want every idea. I don't really love the incubation process, even though I'm about to create an incubator because Jacksonville needs one, not because I want to. Um, but I shouldn't have said it that way. But um, it's necessary for people to go through that. But I mostly get involved in the commercialization aspect of it, right? So show me you have an MVP. Show me you put some grit into this. Show me that you have at least one person that cares. And I want to talk to that one person, find out why they care. And then is that a message that I believe we can take across to more people that will care? Or is there a tweak to this that allows us to have it become more applicable to a greater market? Um, I'm not interested in, I had a person come and tell me, oh, all my friends love this. That's great. Have they invested? Have they bought the product? No, but they think it's great. I'm very happy for you, right? I want to know what the friends and families who you don't know think about it, right? I'm going to do a focus group here, and we're going to find out what people who you don't know really think about it. And what I get sometimes is, well, they don't really understand it, right? Or they're not smart enough to get it. And the reality is that's never the case. The case is you're not communicating it well enough. So it's our job to always look internally and say, why are we not hitting with this message? What has to change? How do we learn from this? It's always our fault, right? it's really not the customer's fault. We have to make sure that they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And if they don't care, well, then they don't care, right? During commercialization is where a lot of companies die because while it's a great idea, it may be too early, or it may be that not enough people love it. And that's okay. You go on to your next idea, right? I had a young man that came to me with this interesting idea, and I thought he was brilliant. And I told him I didn't think this was his opus. And he was crushed. Well, guess what? He's come back with a much better idea. And I'm thrilled because he took it, he turned it, and all of a sudden now I think he's got something, right? Not that I am the arbiter of all great ideas. I can only tell you what I know from my prior experience. I've been pretty okay in the past. Does that help?
Yes. How important do you think is the sales skill set for a startup?
It's interesting. So I say this a lot. I'm sure a lot of other people do. Your cheapest money is sales. It doesn't dilute your business. Sales is also your best function of validation in the marketplace. The challenge that many founders have is that they are engineers or that they are technology people and they're not a salesperson. And that's a different skill and they're uncomfortable. And that's okay. It's fine to be uncomfortable. I love it when people are uncomfortable. I like it. Well, I don't love it when I'm uncomfortable, but you have to live there and you have to do those things because that's where you actually grow. But one advice that I gave to a founder recently was you need a partner. And that partner, right, while you're brilliant and you're the guy behind it or the woman behind it, you need a salesperson or a business person who can actually help you take this forward. And that is a very difficult thing for some founders to hear, which you can only imagine how difficult it is to actually share that information with people or that advice. But that's the reality. You need to have, without sales, you don't have a business. You can have the best bread slicer in the world, but if no one knows about it, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
So you have to have that messaging. You have to have a
absolutely.
salesperson out there that can do it and lead people and get them excited about it. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. And what are the clear signs for a validated product on the market for you?
So clear signs for me, I like to build pipelines, right? So I've got a health tech company and we built about a $30 million pipeline for them. And some would say that's it. Well, it's a startup, right? But with that pipeline, all of a sudden we now have interest from a publicly traded company that now wants to buy the company, that wants to buy the startup because of the pipeline and because of the activity that we're having in closing some of these deals. So they're seeing this and saying, something. I had a conversation with them last week. They're like, if we bought this, we could probably make billions of dollars on this with our product. That's wonderful. Let's find a way to make a deal, partnership, whatever you want to do. Let's make something happen, right? So it's really about getting out there and getting the message out, right? Part of why I do the Silicon Beach pitch events, it's a few reasons. One is every founder needs multiple reps to get their story right. And everyone thinks they know their story and they're telling it great and everyone else is a fool, like I said earlier. The reality is you need a lot of practice, like anything else. So the more reps you get, the better you're going to be. It also means that there are going to be investors in the room and they may or may not be the right investors for you. And that's okay also, right? You get another rep in. Um, you get feedback. I have a panel of experts. Some are in your field and I have about 150 people in the audience. They all get to participate because I have a technology that allows them to vote and provide direct feedback to the founders. So you're getting all of this feedback now. That's a great loop for people to be involved in. And what has happened is some people, founders, have adjusted their presentations. And because of it, they've gotten funding. That's unbelievable for us, for that to happen, right? Very exciting. You have to be open. And while it's your baby, you can't have ownership of the message. Let people help you with it. Am I answering your question?
Yes, absolutely. So basically getting the feedback from the right people, the target audience, and the companies that the
Yeah,
startups are
move away from your
targeting.
mom, your pop, your sisters, your family. Get some feedback from people that don't have the same blood as you or relatives who are gonna tell you honestly, "You know something? I don't like the bald guy. I don't like the way he spoke." And that's kind of the feedback you get, which would then mean I should probably step down and have someone else do the pitch. Tough feedback to get if you're a founder, but it's that kind of feedback that comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the most valuable feedback at the end because actually see the right moves and the direction. On Silicon Beach, you say we don't just advise, we co-build. What does this look like in practice for a founder who walks through your door?
What does it look like? Yeah, yeah. So for
Yes.
each founder, it's different. It depends on where they are in the process. Um, it can be everything from, um, right now I am building an incubator, and it can be, hey, listen, I have a really great idea. I have a prototype, not quite an MVP. Um, and I may say, this is an interesting idea. I'll work with you on it. And that would mean bringing technology people in, start building out the MVP, going out and talking to CEOs and CFOs and CIOs about the product to see if there is an interest. And if there is, I'll continue to work towards funding it and take the product forward to commercialization. Others may come to me with a product that's either fully baked or pretty darn close. And the question is, how do they take it to market? And in some cases, when I say I scale, I try to scale in a pretty big way. Not everybody's ready for that, and that's okay. Um, I may not be the right guy for you, and that's okay too. But if you are, like one gentleman came to me and he's working with a big company and he's going to deploy 3 products. I'm like, great. I have another company that they have 50 locations and they want 3 units each. And he's like, I can't do that. Okay, I'm not your guy. Right? So everyone scales and has a different vision of what success is and what growth is. Right? I had someone else who was saying, I just want to grow to the next county. And I'm like, well, I have an opportunity for us in Dallas or LA. He's like, no, that's too far. That's too big. I'm not ready for that. Okay, that's fine. Right. So I like to find those things out very early on. I had one gentleman who tell me that he's never going to sell the company because he wants to give it to his son who's 13. Well, that, doesn't provide me an exit. Right. And what am I working for then? Right. So there are a lot of conversations that happen beforehand before we decide that we're going to work with them, before they decide that they're going to work with us. And in some cases, we part ways, and I do my best to part ways. And I think most of the people that I've parted ways with are 100% referenceable, which is really important for me. And I still try to help them as much as I can.
To what comes to scaling, what would you think that is the better approach? Like to fully bet on volume and outreach, or to rather try to deepen the relationships with certain types of customers?
So I may be, I'm not a huge fan of like blast emails and cold emails and cold calls. I'd rather go through my network. And I also don't take the approach of what I would call hand to hand combat, which is individual salespeople knocking on doors or emails or stuff like that. I much prefer going down the route of distributors and people that are already in that industry, speaking to those clients and finding those people. I'm working with a company that has a platform for jails to keep the incarcerated safer. Right? I could go to each individual jail, or I can go to the fraternal order of the police and talk to them about how this makes it safer for their members. That to me is a better route, right? And then they're going to talk to the individual jails. Are going to talk to um, mechanical companies that they're integrators into their locations. I'd rather work with the integrators and let them deal with a lot of some of this other stuff. Otherwise, I've got to build big companies, and that's not the goal. The goal is to build fast, small companies that eventually the people that we work with, whether it's the distributor or some of the other tech companies, want to buy this tech and incorporate it into themselves, right? The idea is that we are working with these companies that are our founders, and we're out in 3 to 5 years, right? So to build enough of a moat and commercialization that people go, I should buy this, right? This fits really good with that. And part of the idea is that you find those people early and very intentionally. So they're going to look at this and say, well, it's growing. They're now going to my competitors. I should probably take them out now. And we're all open for that. That's the goal, right? A whole bunch of little successes.
Okay, I understand. You work across AI, fintech, and
Mhm.
healthcare. Where are you seeing the most urgent and underserved problems startups could solve right now?
Well, so across AI, there's a lot of activity going on, right? It's this whole new boom. I think that health tech is helping to reduce operational friction, and that's wonderful. And where it's going to go, I have this, one of the health tech companies I'm working with is an AI radiology company, and with the films, they can provide a full radiology report within 15 seconds. Well, that's going to save lives. That reduces a lot of friction. Fintech, it's all about trust, compliance, and infrastructure. And there are a lot of really cool tech out there. Um, and from an AI perspective, there's a lot of practicality. Everyone's trying to figure out what to do with it. We just have to make sure we continue to realize that we need to still solve a problem. It's not AI just for AI, right? And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is that AI itself is a business. AI is a tool, right? And the question is, how are you going to use that tool? And does that tool at the end of the day fit into our workflow? And more importantly, does it solve a real problem, right? When you do a demo, it's not about the AI, it's not about the company, it's about solving someone's problem. And people seem to forget that sometimes. And by the way, AI is not just ChatGPT, which everyone thinks, oh, it's Claude, it's ChatGPT. There's so much stuff going on beyond that. If you were to sit into not a commercial, but a NVIDIA stock call, oh my God, the things that these guys are doing, and they are probably 5 or 8 years ahead of us.
That's some of the biggest misconceptions you're seeing about AI.
I think I just addressed that it's not its own business, right? A lot of people are using AI right now to help them solve the problems. I had a man here yesterday who was telling me, he couldn't have done this until 3, 4 months ago. And all of a sudden now he has what he believes is not just an idea now, but he has the makings of a business. And I don't disagree with it, right? But the big challenge is going to be who is going to solve that problem first and then commercialize it, right? Or best and then commercialize it. Which again is part of the rationale of, when you look at had a buddy of mine I used to work with used to talk about the iPhone, right? Which iPhone do you have? Or which phone do you have?
Yeah, so it's iPhone like
Right.
16, I
So
think.
was there anything wrong with the
Yes.
iPhone 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5? No, we all bought them and they've just gotten progressively better, which is the same concept of perfection is the antithesis of getting something done, right? If Apple waited for the 16 to be ready, we all would have never had the iPhone. It's continued to gotten better and better and better. So, when people say, well, I'm not ready yet, I'm in stealth mode. Get the MVP, get something out there, get it in somebody's hands and get them working on it and get the feedback. So instead of charging them $100 a month, charge them 10. And the rest of it, you're paying to get the feedback that you're not getting now. Right. So that's one of the other things that we kind of work with people on. And it's not just about the AI. The AI is wonderful. What are you solving? You need that human in the loop. You need that customer in the loop to really help you build something out.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of AI startups right now.
Yeah.
So, what do you think makes the startup that are making it differentiate themselves? So, what they do better? Is it the positioning? Is it the go-to-market strategy? Is it the product? How an AI startup can stand out in some way on the market right
Yeah.
now?
So it's a great question. I think it's a few things. One is, yes, what does the product do? How quickly does it work? What's the problem? The other part from an investor perspective or someone like me is, do I like the team? Do I trust the team that's working on this? Do I believe that they can pivot when things get tough? And the answer to many of those are no, right? I don't like the founder. I don't trust the founder. I don't trust the second guy, the third guy, whatever it may be. There is something there. And it's not just me making this determination, right? I've got people here that do that. And we all sit around and go, like the product, but that but is a problem, right? Because everyone's got ego. And when you're a founder, you think that you are brilliant. And you probably are, right? But don't forget that the people that are looking to invest, they're not dopes. They're pretty brilliant too. I remember when I was working at JP Morgan, everybody in the room was more bright than the next. I mean, it was a very competitive environment. It's no different here. You're asking for money. First, understand these are not your friends. Second, understand that you don't have to try to make yourself look good. They're evaluating you with every conversation you have and every interaction they have. And the dumb question they have is being asked for a reason to see how you respond to it. So, how you control yourself is just as important as how wonderful the product is. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They're getting in bed with you and they're giving you money because they believe in you, not just the product, because the product is probably going to have to pivot. And if I don't think you have the grit to do that, I'm not going to make that investment. Does that make sense?
Yes. Do you think that it's important for founders to build a personal brand in B2B, or to focus their efforts more on building the product and the company? So how do you see that?
Yeah, I don't put that much stock in the personal brand. I know a lot of people do that. And, you know, my brand and what I've tried to do is actually just build Silicon Beach as an ecosystem. It's not about me. It's about Jacksonville. It's about the Southeast. It's about building an ecosystem. And I learned this from David Meltzer. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a public speaker. He's wonderful. And it's all about giving. And if you give, things are going to come back to you and you try to do right by everybody else. And it's not about me. And Dave Meltzer would tell you it's not about him, right? When you start to create that kind of framework and that kind of thought process, and you run into people where it's all about them, that's a buzzsaw. And you realize it's really about the company and the team and making all of that go. So you have to swallow a little bit of your pride and your ego. Um, but you also have to understand what your values are, right? So when people are investing, they're investing in someone with values that match theirs. It's not, people are, I don't find that many people that are investing or wanting to move towards someone who considers themselves a brand, because they see that as, at least in my humble opinion, I see that as, paper thin.
But then it's all about giving value.
Yeah.
And which do you think are the most important qualities a founder should have, or a skill set?
I think a founder needs to be curious. I think a founder needs to be humble, and a founder needs to be open to hearing criticism because they're going to get it not from me, but they're going to get it from a lot of people. And they need to think about what's real, what should be internalized, and what they should do to potentially change those things. Because we all think we're wonderful, right? Including myself. Um, and it's hard to hear criticism. I got some criticism yesterday and I went, no way. Okay. So I need to think about how do I communicate differently with someone else because the way I am communicating isn't hitting. So that's on me. It's not on them for understanding it differently. It means I have to understand how to pitch and speak to different people in different ways. And that's a skill. And we always have to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your biggest challenges right now in running Silicon Beach?
It's so the biggest challenge I have is um, right now I'm building an ecosystem as well as a company. And that's a challenge. Building the connective tissue fast enough um, is a challenge between founders and customers and capital and talent. Um, I think the opportunities are here. The ecosystem needs to grow and mature a little bit. I'm seeing great momentum, and I'm doing a lot of things very intentionally and deliberately. Like I do these three events a month, and I don't charge for them. My wife is like, "Oh my god, why are you not charging for them? You have so many people coming." Because that's not the mission, right? The mission is to help build the ecosystem, get people talking. And then hopefully someone is going to come back and say, hey, I want to hire this guy because he's made so much. He's helped me, right? And I'm at the position now where I can hire him because I actually need him. So, that's the challenge is how much longer do I want to keep doing this? And right now there's a void in our market for an incubator. So I'm talking about creating an incubator, which is just another expense for me to figure out how do I do this and get more people involved in innovation. So I'm playing a longer game, and that's a huge challenge because I don't, it doesn't have immediate impact, but I like what I'm seeing in the market. I like what I'm seeing in my city. I like what I'm seeing in the Southeast. Right. So I'm continuing to invest into this area.
Long-term visions normally take some more time and patience. How would you describe your vision that you have for Silicon Beach? How would you see the company, say, in five
Yeah.
years?
So my goal for Silicon Beach is as I stand up this incubator, I have people coming through the front door that have ideas. Some of them mature and then stay with me through the venture studio that I think I can work with and build. And I have others leaving out the back door from an exit perspective. And I get a few exits. But in the meantime, I am building something here in Jacksonville. I am building something in the southeast of the United States. And because of it, I'm probably speaking, which I'm doing now at the University of Florida and University of North Florida and Jacksonville University and Flagler College. I'm doing more and more events, and I'm being asked to, which I'll eventually have to start to say no to, um, or at least figure out what I do with my time. But it's growing an ecosystem here and growing the business, um, and getting a handful of clients or more under my belt and growing the company. And like I said, I want a few exits. It'd be nice to be able to do that in this marketplace, in the startup field. I think we can, and we're moving down that path. I've got one right now that we're meeting next week with this third or fourth meeting with this company, the publicly traded company, and hopefully we move on to continue on through due diligence. So it's very exciting. That would be a great win. And then I've got a handful of other clients. So it's I want to get. I'm raising money right now. I need some money to provide analysts and support for the clients that we have and to bring on some more clients. So I just want to keep growing and providing positive impact.
If you could describe the value you provide with the events and with Silicon Beach, how would you describe this value in one sentence?
That's a tough thing to do in one sentence. I think that a lot of what I've done is, yes, build the brand, but it's about building the ecosystem and getting people out of their office, house, rut to come and do something different, which is communicate with people and find their tribe. And that hasn't been done since before COVID. So people are finding their way and it's really kind of exciting. So Elena, I'll tell you that I had an event last week, a networking event, and I do it at a cigar place because most people are uncomfortable at a cigar place. And I had people from out of town show up. I had new people that recently moved to town show up. When I got there were over 20 people already in the room talking and communicating. That was the first time that's happened. What's happening is when I have a pitch event and I start at 6:30, people show up at 5. And the room is buzzing with networking. I had this networking event started at 4, people showed up at 3. I have open office hours, I do coffee, people show up early in the morning, 7:00 in the morning. I don't start till 7:30 or 8. And then I can't get people to leave. So there's a community being built, and I like to think I've got something to do with it. And now there are other events happening around the city, and it's wonderful. And I'm just happy to be a part of what's going on. And the coolest thing is I get noticed every once in a while. Hey, that's the Silicon Beach guy. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I think seeing how people get inspired about what you're doing and showing curiosity and interest, like that's the goal of every entrepreneur, like to bring that kind of inspiration to people to move forward.
It it's very rewarding.
And I'm coming to yeah, yeah, it sounds like this. I'm coming to the last
Okay.
question in the conversation. For a founder with a strong idea but no clear path to execution, what is the highest leverage move they can make early on to move things
Okay.
forward?
Well, it's a lot of stuff that I've already talked about, which is get clear on what the problem is, understand who your buyer is, and prove it. So before you overbuild, you need to validate the urgency of what you're solving, right? I said this earlier. Your cheapest validation and your cheapest capital is sales. If you get people interested and they're prepared to buy, then you go gangbusters. Not just one person, not just 2 people, right? I built a $30 million pipeline on this product. That was more than 1 or 2 people. Now their job is to go down and knock them down. That's validation, right? As they get through due diligence. So, and with that, you can take that and go and help raise yourself some money. It's always best to have sales. I don't care if it's pre-sales. Show that someone in the market cares. Or what's going to happen is you're going to pivot. And that is, again, I'm going to say it again, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great advice because sales is also a lot about like just doing the work, like showing up, doing the reps, and that's really the thing that every founder, if they have the courage to put themselves out there,
100%.
like this is a great move, and to start communicating their ideas, to start pitching with people, and just to see and in which direction like they move on, because at least for me it was like this. I have started with one idea and this idea starts evolving and then you move in different
Yes.
directions and you see where the market is heading, where the current pain points right now, and you just adapt, like you iterate.
Yes. So what you said there was so important. You have to do the work. This is why I don't love working with companies in ideation, because they haven't done the work yet. And I don't want to be the guy that does the work, because then all of a sudden I feel like I own the company. And the founder's like, well, I need you to do this, this, and this. And that's not, you have to understand it's your company. You have to do the work. When you've done some of the work, then me and other people can help you. But, otherwise you're making me a founder, which could be fine, but that's not what I want, right? You have to do the work. You said it perfectly.
Jason, thank you very much for being guest in the podcast. Your insights about startups, AI, and how to start a company and communicate your ideas were very valuable for the audience. Thank you so much for your time.